welcome. My name is Haoyu Zhang. I'm a software engineer from PVD Lab at the University of Colorado Medical Campus. Today, I'd like to introduce you to a new method for computing correlation coefficient that is developed by our lab and its new implementation utilizing GPU resources. This new implementation of that gives us a huge speed up compared to its original CPU-based version. So the method we're going to talk about is called CCC, Cluster Match Correlation Coefficient. The cool thing about CCC is that in addition to linear patterns detected by traditional methods such as Pearson and Spearman, CCC can also capture nonlinear patterns. It can also mix numerical and categorical data when we're computing the correlation, giving us a better insight into our data. So here in figure 1, we have a few examples. The numbers on these graphs may be too small, but I have a link to the original CCC paper where this figure 1 comes from, so you can take a better look there. But in essence, so we can take a look at the first row. We have a few data that are representing some linear patterns here and there, right? And in those cases, CCC gives you a similar coefficient number compared to Spearman and Pearson. And on the second row, if we take a look at the last two examples where we have a quadratic relationship and two lines relationship, in these two cases, CCC gives you a relatively high coefficient number, indicating there may be some non-linear patterns for you to look into. And on the third row, we have some examples showing how CCC handles categorical data. For more input, as I said, please refer to the original CCC paper. It will be interesting. So that's a brief introduction of CCC. And now I'd like to talk about our objective. So what has been bothered us is that even utilizing CPU multithreading, CCC can still be very slow when dealing with large data input, such as the GText data. So in this work I'm presenting, we developed a new version of CCC that utilizes the massively parallelized resources on GPUs using NVIDIA CUDA to accelerate our algorithm. Right, so how did we do that, right? Now we are on the method section. How do we do that? We don't want to rewrite the whole Python package of CCC using C or C++ in order to use CUDA, right? Since it's time consuming. We only want to rewrite the parts that are identified as performance bottlenecks. With that in mind, from a high level perspective, what we did is what I just described. So as you can tell from figure 2, imagine the left 4 puzzle pieces form the original Python package of CCC. We rewrote module 3 here with CUDA C++, and we wired up the internal APIs, and it works the same as before, but it's much faster. I will leave out the technical details, but keep in mind that this strategy can be applied to any scientific tools developed in Python that require performance improvement, in case you are interested. So now we move on to the results section. Right, so we ran Pearson, Spearman, CCC, and CCC GPU using the top 10,000 most variable genes across like about 700 samples in whole blood, using the GText data. And first, we found that CCC GPU achieved a 37x speed up over the original CCC that is parallelized by 24 high-end CPU cores. And if we consider about, if we decide to run this whole algorithm for all the 50K genes across 49 GText tissues, CCC GPU can effectively reduce the computing time from 1 week to half a day on a single machine. So that is great. So, and then we benchmarked CCC GPU using the input I just talked about comparing with the runtime of the original CCC using different number of CPU threads as a reference. Right, so from figure 3, we can see that when we're using only one core for CCC, the CPU version, we achieve like a 1000x speed up, which is great. And as we keep increasing the number of threads being used, we can see the speed up actually decreases, right? That makes sense because our GPU runtime remains the same. However, if we keep increasing the number of threads, you can see the speed up stabilized. That means the CPU version could no longer scale up because of the hardware resource limitation, right? So, and then to better understand how CCC GPU scales when dealing with large dataset, we used synthesized input to compute its speed up against CCC, the original version, right? And that is demonstrated in figure 4. So, so on the x-axis is the size of the input, and on the y-axis we have the speed up, and different curves in different color representing different configurations for the original CCC using different CPU threads. So for example, if you take a look at this blue curve, that means we benchmarked CCC GPU against CCC using only 6 threads. And it achieved like 140x speed up when the input size is 8,000 genes, right? So it is great because you can see from this chart you can clearly tell how CCC GPU can utilize the GPU resources to achieve a good amount of parallelization, right? Okay, so secondly, how about biologic findings, right? We found that in the GTEx data demonstrated above, there are more than 20,000 gene pairs with a high CCC value that were not highly ranked by other linear-only coefficients, suggesting there are some nonlinear patterns. In addition, by leveraging CCC's ability to correlate both numerical and category data, we found that many of these complex relationships are driven by sex differences, cascade effects triggered by the organism's death, and other factors. Right. And that's for the results. For future steps, we plan to apply more sophisticated CUDA optimizations in order to get a higher speedup. And secondly, we also like to experiment on multi-GPU support. That means if you have more than one graphics card, CCC GPU can run even faster. Okay, finally, we come to the conclusions. In essence, CCC GPUs delivers a next-generation efficient correlation coefficient without sacrificing accuracy and reliability. This performance enhancement makes comprehensive correlation analysis of large number of data practical on standard research hardware. CCC GPU also enables biologists to perform sophisticated feature selection prior to machine learning model training with large data sets. Additionally, by accelerating the discovery of novel nonlinear relationships in expression data, CCC GPUs helps researchers to quickly identify patterns beyond conventional linear-only relationships, potentially uncovering new biological insights that would otherwise remain hidden. And for the last section, we'll also have some additional information for you to better understand CCC. But for the sake of time and conciseness, I'll omit this part. Please check out our paper of CCC for more details. You can find the link to the CCC's GitHub repository in the QR code on the bottom of this poster. will soon publish CCC GPU. Thank you for listening.